In March 2024, a federal judge in Delaware made a decision that sent shockwaves around the world. Judge Catherine Brennan stood in her courtroom and announced something nobody expected. Elon Musk might be banned from running SpaceX, the company he founded, the company that changed space travel forever. The reason? His behavior, his tweets, his divided attention between Tesla, Twitter, and SpaceX shareholders said he was dangerous. They said he couldn't handle the responsibility. They said SpaceX needed protection from its own founder. The judge agreed to consider it. Elon Musk had 30 days to prove he deserved to keep his company, 30 days to show the world he wasn't a liability. What happened next shocked everyone: engineers, students, judges, and the entire world. This is the story of those 30 days, the story of the people who fought to save a dream, and the story of what really happened when one judge tried to ground the man who wanted to take us to Mars. The gavel came down like thunder. Judge Catherine Brennan sat behind her massive wooden bench in the federal courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware, her reading glasses perched on her nose, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who had spent 30 years making sure powerful people followed the rules. Today, she was about to shock the world. "This court has reviewed all the evidence," Judge Brennan said. Her voice was calm but firm. "The shareholders have raised serious concerns about Mr. Elon Musk's ability to manage his duties at SpaceX." In the back of the courtroom, Elon Musk stood perfectly still. He wore a dark suit that looked like he had slept in it. His face was pale. His hands were shoved deep in his pockets. Around him, reporters leaned forward in their seats. Cameras clicked. Phones buzzed with incoming messages. "Mr. Musk currently serves as CEO of Tesla, owner of the social media platform X, and CEO of SpaceX," the judge continued. "Evidence shows that his attention is divided among these companies. His recent behavior on social media has been," she paused, choosing her words carefully, "erratic and concerning to shareholders." Marcus Webb watched the live stream from Mission Control at Starbase in Texas. The huge screens usually showed rocket data and launch countdowns. Today, they showed a judge who might destroy everything Marcus believed in. Marcus was 42 years old. He had worked at SpaceX for 12 years. He had 2 kids, a mortgage, and a dream that humanity would one day walk on Mars. "Turn it up," someone called from across the room. The volume increased. Judge Brennan's voice filled the massive building where Starship prototypes stood waiting for their next test flight. "In January of this year, I voided Mr. Musk's $56 billion pay package at Tesla," the judge said. "I found that the board failed to prove this compensation was fair to shareholders. That case revealed a pattern of corporate governance problems." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. He knew where this was going. "Several SpaceX shareholders have now filed suit," Judge Brennan continued. "They claim that Mr. Musk's divided attention puts their investment at risk. They point to evidence that he sometimes sleeps at X headquarters instead of monitoring SpaceX operations. They note that he pulled SpaceX engineers to work on Twitter, X, during a critical development period." The judge looked up from her papers. Her eyes scanned the courtroom. "After careful consideration, I am issuing a preliminary order. Mr. Musk must show cause within 30 days why he should not be removed from day-to-day operations at SpaceX if he cannot prove he can manage his responsibilities properly. I will issue a permanent injunction barring him from serving as CEO." The courtroom exploded. Reporters jumped to their feet, shouting questions. Security guards moved forward. The judge banged her gavel 3 times. "Order! I will have order in this court." Marcus stared at the screen in disbelief. Around him, engineers stood frozen. Some had their mouths open. Others looked like they might cry. "This can't be happening," whispered Jen Rodriguez, a propulsion engineer who had worked on the Raptor engines. They can't just take Elon away from SpaceX. They just did, Marcus said quietly. On the screen, Judge Brennan continued speaking. This is not a decision I make lightly. SpaceX has achieved remarkable things. They have restored American spaceflight capability. They have made reusable rockets a reality. But corporate officers have duties to their shareholders. If Mr. Musk cannot fulfill those duties, he should not hold the position. She set down her papers and looked directly at the camera. The final hearing will be held 30 days from today. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down again. Elon Musk turned and walked out of the courtroom. Reporters chased after him, shouting questions. He didn't answer any of them. 3,000 miles away in Pasadena, California, 16-year-old Sarah Chen sat in her bedroom, staring at her laptop screen. Tears ran down her cheeks. Her walls were covered with SpaceX posters. A model Starship sat on her desk. She had been planning her future since she was 12 years old. Perfect grades, MIT or Caltech, aerospace engineering degree, job at SpaceX, trip to Mars. Now that future felt like it was crumbling. Her phone buzzed. It was her best friend, Maya. "Did you see the news about SpaceX?" "Yeah," Sarah typed back. "I saw it." "Are you okay?" Sarah didn't know how to answer that question. How do you explain to someone that a judge in Delaware just killed your dream? She looked at the poster above her desk. It showed a starship on the surface of Mars with Earth visible in the pink sky. The caption read, "The future is multiplanetary." Not if Judge Brennan had anything to say about it. Back at Starbase, Marcus's phone rang. It was his wife, Jennifer. "Marcus, are you okay? I just saw the news." "I'm fine," Marcus lied. "What does this mean? Will you lose your job?" "I don't know, Jen. I honestly don't know." His daughter Emma grabbed the phone. "Daddy, kids at school are saying SpaceX is going to shut down. That's not true, right?" Marcus closed his eyes. Emma was 9 years old. She was named after Emma Darwin because Marcus believed in evolution, and humanity's next evolution meant leaving Earth. "It's going to be okay, sweetie," he told her. "We're going to figure this out." But he wasn't sure he believed his own words. At 6 o'clock that evening, every SpaceX employee received an email. The subject line was simple: "All hands meeting, tomorrow 8 a.m. mandatory." Marcus read the email 3 times. It didn't say what the meeting was about. It didn't need to. That night he sat on his back porch looking up at the stars. The Texas sky was clear. He could see Mars, a tiny red dot among thousands of white ones. His phone buzzed. A notification from X, the social media platform Elon Musk owned. Musk had posted something. Just one sentence. "Some battles are fought in courtrooms. Others are fought in the stars. 30 days. Watch." Marcus stared at the message. What did it mean? What was Musk planning? He looked back up at Mars. Somewhere up there, humanity's future was waiting. The question was whether a judge in Delaware would let them reach it. Inside the house, Emma called out, "Daddy, come look. There's a shooting star." Marcus stood up and went inside. His daughter stood at the window, pointing at the sky. "Did you make a wish?" Marcus asked. "Yeah," Emma said. "I wish that SpaceX doesn't go away. That was a good wish, right?" Marcus hugged his daughter tight. "That was a perfect wish, sweetie." But wishes weren't enough. Not anymore. Tomorrow they would find out what Elon Musk had planned. Tomorrow they would learn if the dream of Mars would survive. Marcus just hoped 30 days was enough time to save everything they had built. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Jennifer breathe softly beside him. His mind wouldn't stop racing. 30 days, 4 weeks, 720 hours to prove that SpaceX needed Elon Musk. But how? At 5 in the morning, Marcus gave up on sleep. He dressed quietly in the dark jeans, his faded SpaceX t-shirt, work boots. He kissed Jennifer on the forehead without waking her, then checked on Emma. She was curled up under her blanket, clutching a stuffed rocket ship. Marcus drove through the empty streets of Brownsville toward Starbase. The sun hadn't risen yet. The road stretched out before him, flat and dark, cutting through the scrubland of South Texas. He had made this drive thousands of times. But today felt different. Today felt like the beginning of the end. When Marcus arrived at Starbase, the parking lot was already half full. Other engineers had the same idea: come early, try to process what was happening, prepare for whatever Musk was going to tell them. The facility spread out before him like a science fiction movie come to life. Massive Starship prototypes stood tall against the slowly brightening sky. The Mechazilla launch tower, a giant metal structure with mechanical arms designed to catch falling rockets, loomed over everything. Fuel tanks, warehouses, assembly buildings, all of it humming with the promise of space travel. Marcus had been part of building this. His hands, his mind, his sweat. He had worked on the Raptor engines that would someday carry humans to Mars. He had solved problems that textbooks said were impossible. Now a judge might take it all away. Inside the main building, the break room was packed. Engineers clustered around tablets and phones, reading news articles, watching legal analysts on TV. Unprecedented move by Judge Brennan. Shareholders have a legitimate concern about divided attention. SpaceX stock down 15% in after-hours trading. Marcus poured himself coffee. His hands shook slightly as he lifted the cup. "Hey, Webb." It was Tom Chen, one of the senior propulsion engineers. Tom had gray hair and 25 years of aerospace experience. Before SpaceX, he had worked at NASA during the Space Shuttle program. "You doing okay?" "Not really," Marcus admitted. Tom nodded. "Me neither. I left NASA because I was tired of the bureaucracy. Tired of politicians canceling programs every time the White House changed hands. I came here because Elon made me believe we could actually do something that mattered. And now I'm wondering if I should have stayed at NASA." Tom's voice was bitter. "At least government jobs are stable." Marcus didn't know what to say to that. More engineers filed in. The room grew crowded and hot. Everyone was talking at once, voices overlapping. "Heard he's going to sell X. Maybe he'll step down voluntarily." "No way, Elon never gives up." "What if the judge makes him leave? What happens to us?" That was the question nobody wanted to answer. SpaceX wasn't like other aerospace companies. At Boeing or Lockheed Martin, engineers followed procedures written decades ago. They worked on projects that took 10 years and cost billions. Everything moved slowly, carefully, safely. SpaceX was different. They moved fast. They broke things. They tested, failed, learned, and tried again. And that culture came directly from Elon Musk. Without him, would SpaceX become just another cautious contractor? Marcus thought back to when he first joined the company. It was 2012. SpaceX had just completed the first commercial resupply mission to the International Space Station. Everyone said it was a fluke, that a private company could never compete with the big aerospace giants. Marcus had been working at Boeing at the time. Good salary, good benefits, stable job. His wife was pregnant with Emma. Taking a risk seemed crazy, but he took the call from SpaceX's recruiter anyway. The recruiter told him about their vision: reusable rockets, missions to Mars, making humanity a multiplanetary species. It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. It sounded exactly like what Marcus wanted to spend his life doing. Jennifer thought he had lost his mind. "You want to quit Boeing for a startup that blows up rockets," she had said. "We have a baby coming." "That's exactly why," Marcus told her. "I want Emma to grow up in a world where space isn't just for governments and billionaires. I want her to look at Mars and know that someday regular people can go there." Jennifer had eventually agreed. Barely. Now, 12 years later, Marcus had been part of something incredible. He had helped develop the Merlin engines that powered Falcon 9. He had worked on the landing systems that let boosters return to Earth and land themselves, something people said was impossible. He had contributed to the Raptor engines that would someday power Starship to Mars, and he had kept his promise to Emma. She had grown up watching rockets land themselves, watching astronauts launch from American soil again, watching the impossible become routine. If SpaceX fell apart now, what would he tell her? At 7:45, someone's phone buzzed, then another, then everyone's at once. Another company-wide email. Meeting moved to High Bay 1, too many people for conference room. Elon. High Bay 1 was where they assembled Starship prototypes. It was the largest building on the facility, big enough to hold hundreds of people. The engineers filed out of the break room and walked across the compound. The sun was fully up now, turning the Texas sky orange and gold. A SpaceX Falcon 9 had launched from Cape Canaveral overnight, carrying Starlink satellites. Marcus could see the contrail still visible on the horizon, a thin white line connecting Earth to space. That's what they did here. They connected Earth to space. They built bridges to the stars. Inside High Bay 1, folding chairs had been set up in rows, but there weren't enough. People stood along the walls, sat on equipment crates crowded in the doorways. Marcus estimated 5,000 people were crammed into the building. Engineers, technicians, welders, administrators, everyone who made SpaceX work. At exactly 8 o'clock, Elon Musk walked in. He looked worse than he had in the courtroom video. His hair was messy. His eyes were red, like he hadn't slept either. He wore jeans and a black t-shirt that said Occupy Mars. He walked to the front of the room without fanfare. No music, no introduction. He just stood there looking at the thousands of people who had built his dream with him. The room fell completely silent. Musk took a deep breath. "Okay," he said, "let's talk about what happens next." 3,000 miles away from that meeting in Texas, Sarah Chen woke up to 17 missed calls. Her phone buzzed on her nightstand like an angry bee. Messages flooded in from friends, from her debate team, from people she barely knew at school. "OMG, did you see SpaceX news? Sarah, you must be freaking out. RIP your Mars dreams, Lyle." That last one made her want to throw her phone across the room. Sarah sat up in bed and looked around her small bedroom. Every inch of wall space was covered. Posters of Starship launches, pictures of Mars rovers, a framed photo of astronaut Mae Jemison, the first black woman in space, a Chinese space agency poster her grandfather had sent from Taiwan. On her desk sat her prized possession, a detailed model of Starship that she had built herself from a kit. It had taken her 3 months. Every tiny panel was painted perfectly. Every engine nozzle was exactly right. Next to it sat a notebook. Inside were her plans, written in careful handwriting. Freshman year, join robotics club, maintain 4.0 GPA. Sophomore year, take advanced physics and calculus. Junior year, apply for NASA internship programs. Senior year, apply to MIT, Caltech, Stanford. College, aerospace engineering degree. Age 22, graduate, apply to SpaceX. Age 25, work on Mars mission design. Age 31, first crewed Mars mission if schedule holds. She had calculated everything, every step, every year, every milestone on the path to Mars. Now a judge had thrown a wrench into the entire plan. Sarah's phone rang again. This time she answered. "Sarah, it's Mr. Patterson. Can you come to school early today? I'd like to talk to you." Mr. Patterson was her guidance counselor. He was 63 years old with white hair and kind eyes. Before becoming a teacher, he had been an engineer at NASA. "Is this about SpaceX?" Sarah asked. Yes, but not the way you think. Just come in early, okay? Sarah got dressed slowly. She picked a shirt from her drawer, a faded SpaceX logo tee that she had bought at a rocket launch 2 years ago. Her parents had driven 6 hours to Cape Canaveral so she could watch Crew Dragon carry astronauts to the International Space Station. It was the best day of her life. Downstairs, her father was making breakfast. David Chen worked as a janitor at Caltech. He had been an aerospace engineer in Taiwan, but his credentials didn't transfer to America. So he cleaned classrooms where students learned the things he used to teach. "You okay, Bao Bei?" he asked in Mandarin. Bao Bei meant precious treasure. "I don't know, Ba," Sarah answered in English. She always answered in English even though he spoke to her in Mandarin. It was their compromise. Her mother, Linda, worked 2 jobs, one at a grocery store, one cleaning houses. She had already left for work. Sarah's parents worked so hard so she could have opportunities they never had. And now those opportunities might disappear. "Everything will be okay," her father said, placing a bowl of rice porridge in front of her. "Dreams don't die because one judge says something. Dreams die when you stop believing." Sarah wanted to believe him, but doubt crept in like cold water. At school, she found Mr. Patterson in his office. The walls were covered with photos from his NASA days, him standing next to a space shuttle, him in mission control during a launch, him shaking hands with astronauts. "Sit down, Sarah," Mr. Patterson said gently. Sarah sat. She felt tears building behind her eyes but refused to let them fall. "Your teachers tell me your grades have dropped this semester," Mr. Patterson said. "You seem distracted, anxious. What's going on?" Everything came pouring out. The plans she had made, the future she had calculated, the fear that it was all falling apart. "What if SpaceX doesn't exist by the time I'm ready?" Sarah said, her voice breaking. "What if the judge stops everything? What if I spend all these years working towards something that disappears?" Mr. Patterson leaned back in his chair. He was quiet for a long moment. "Can I tell you a story?" he finally said. Sarah nodded. "I started at NASA in 1982. The space shuttle was new and exciting. We thought we would build space stations, moon bases, go to Mars. The future seemed unlimited." He pointed to a photo on the wall, a space shuttle sitting on the launch pad. Then in 1986, Challenger exploded. 7 astronauts died, including a teacher named Krista McAuliffe. The program shut down for 3 years. People said human spaceflight was too dangerous, too expensive, not worth it. Sarah had studied Challenger in history class. She knew what happened. "I thought about quitting," Mr. Patterson continued. "I thought maybe everyone was right. Maybe space wasn't worth the risk." "But you didn't quit," Sarah said. "No, because dreams don't die easily. NASA came back. We flew again. We built the International Space Station. We sent rovers to Mars. And when the shuttle program ended in 2011, I thought space was over for America." He smiled. Then SpaceX came along, a private company doing what NASA couldn't anymore. And I realized something important. The dream is bigger than any one program, any one company, any one person. "But Elon Musk is one man," Mr. Patterson interrupted gently. "SpaceX is bigger than him now. The engineers, the technology, the knowledge, that doesn't disappear because a judge makes a ruling. And even if SpaceX somehow vanished tomorrow, the dream wouldn't die. Someone else would pick it up. Maybe you would pick it up." Sarah wiped her eyes. "You really think so?" "I know so. Because I've watched the dream survive disasters, budget cuts, political fights, and public fear. It survives because people like you keep believing." Sarah sat quietly thinking. Then she made a decision. She pulled out her phone and opened a petition website. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Students supporting SpaceX. Don't let one judge kill humanity's future." She wrote from her heart about growing up watching launches, about her dreams of Mars, about how space exploration inspired kids like her to study science and engineering. She hit publish. "What are you doing?" Mr. Patterson asked. "Something," Sarah said. "I don't know if it will help, but I have to try." Within 1 hour, the petition had 500 signatures. Within 3 hours, 5,000. By the end of the school day, 50,000 people had signed. Sarah's phone exploded with messages. News websites wanted interviews. Students from other schools were sharing the petition. Someone had turned it into a hashtag. Save SpaceX. That night, Sarah sat at her desk looking at her Starship model. The judge hadn't killed the dream yet. Maybe she wouldn't. And if she tried, Sarah would fight back. Judge Catherine Brennan sat alone in her office, surrounded by stacks of legal briefs that reached nearly to the ceiling. It was 9 o'clock at night. The courthouse was empty except for security guards. Outside her window, downtown Wilmington was quiet, street lights reflecting off puddles from an afternoon rain. Catherine took off her reading glasses and rubbed her tired eyes. She was 58 years old. She had presided over thousands of cases in her 30-year career. Corporate disputes, shareholder lawsuits, breach of contract cases, the boring but essential work of making sure businesses followed the law. This case was different. This case had taken over her life. Her email inbox had exploded with over 15,000 messages in 2 days. Her office had received 300 phone calls. Some people supported her decision. Many did not. The messages ranged from thoughtful to hateful. "Thank you for holding billionaires accountable. You're protecting shareholders' rights. How dare you destroy American space exploration? My son wants to be an astronaut because of SpaceX. You're killing his dreams. I hope you lose your job." That last category was the most common. Catherine had never experienced anything like this. She was used to being anonymous. Corporate law judges didn't make headlines. They made careful, reasoned decisions about business procedures that nobody outside the legal world cared about. Now she was trending on social media. News channels debated her ruling. Late-night comedians made jokes about her. Last night, Jimmy Fallon had done a whole segment. A judge tried to ground Elon Musk, but he's already planning to launch himself to Mars to escape her courtroom. The audience had laughed. Catherine had not. She looked at the framed photo on her desk, her nephew Jeremy at his high school graduation. He was wearing his cap and gown and underneath a SpaceX shirt. She could see the logo peeking out. Jeremy was 22 now, studying mechanical engineering at Penn State. He had called her 3 times since the ruling. She hadn't answered. She knew what he would say. Catherine opened the case file again, forcing herself to focus on the facts instead of the emotions swirling around this case. The lawsuit had been filed by Richard Morrison, a retired aerospace executive who had invested $2 million in SpaceX during an early funding round. His investment was now worth over $50 million. Most people would be thrilled with that return. But Morrison wasn't most people. His complaint listed specific grievances against Elon Musk. First, in October 2022, Musk purchased Twitter for $44 billion and renamed it X almost immediately. He began pulling SpaceX engineers to help fix problems at the social media company. Internal emails showed that at least 30 engineers were temporarily reassigned without board approval. Second, Musk's behavior on X had become increasingly erratic. He posted controversial opinions. He got into public arguments. He made statements that damaged his reputation, and by extension, SpaceX's reputation. Third, evidence showed Musk sometimes slept at X headquarters in San Francisco instead of monitoring critical SpaceX operations in Texas or California. During one Starship test flight, he wasn't even at mission control. Fourth, the Tesla Pay package that Catherine had voided earlier this year proved a pattern. Musk had received $56 billion in compensation that the Tesla board couldn't properly justify. It showed he prioritized personal wealth over shareholder interests. Fifth, Musk owned or controlled multiple companies: SpaceX, Tesla, X, Neuralink, and the Boring Company. No human could effectively manage all of them. When Catherine first reviewed the case, she had planned to dismiss it quickly. Shareholders complaining about getting rich seemed ridiculous. But then she dug deeper. She read testimony from former SpaceX employees. One engineer described a critical test being delayed because Musk was dealing with an X-crisis. Another talked about how Musk's controversial tweets made it harder to recruit talented employees who didn't want to be associated with his politics. A former executive testified that Musk once held a SpaceX board meeting via video call while simultaneously tweeting and eating lunch. He barely paid attention to a discussion about safety protocols. The evidence painted a picture of a brilliant but scattered man who had taken on more than any human could handle. Catherine believed in accountability. She had built her entire career on the principle that rules applied to everyone, even geniuses, even billionaires. Her father had taught her that. Thomas Brennan had worked in the steel mills of Pittsburgh for 40 years. He wasn't educated. He had dropped out of school in 8th grade to help support his family. But he was the smartest man Catherine ever knew. "Rules exist for a reason, Katie," he used to tell her. "They protect the weak from the strong. The moment you let powerful people ignore the rules, you've lost everything that matters." Her father had died when Catherine was in law school. Lung cancer from breathing steel mill fumes for 4 decades. The company had known the air was toxic. They hadn't cared. Profit mattered more than workers' lives. That experience had shaped Catherine's entire worldview. Corporations needed oversight. Executives needed accountability. Rules mattered. But now, sitting in her quiet office, Catherine felt doubt creeping in. Was she applying corporate law principles to something bigger than corporate law? SpaceX wasn't just a company. It represented something more: humanity's expansion into space. She thought about her nephew Jeremy. He had been obsessed with space since he was 6 years old. He used to build model rockets in the garage. Now he was studying engineering because he wanted to work on spacecraft. At Christmas dinner last year, Jeremy had talked non-stop about SpaceX, about how they had landed a rocket booster on a ship in the ocean, about how they were building Starship to carry 100 people to Mars. "Aunt Kate," he had said, eyes shining with excitement, "we're living in the coolest time in history. We're going to Mars in my lifetime. How amazing is that?" Catherine's sister had laughed. "Jeremy, calm down, let people eat." But Catherine had seen the passion in her nephew's eyes, the pure, unfiltered hope. Was she about to kill that hope? Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Rebecca. "Jeremy saw the news. He's devastated. He won't talk to me. Please call him." Catherine set down her phone without responding. She couldn't call Jeremy. Not yet. Not until she was sure she had made the right decision. But what was the right decision? Enforce corporate law and risk damaging humanity's space program, or make an exception for one man because he was doing something important? Catherine stood and walked to her window. Downtown Wilmington was quiet and dark. But somewhere out there in Texas and California and Florida, SpaceX employees were probably still working, building rockets, testing engines, dreaming of Mars. She thought about the petition she had read earlier, written by a 16-year-old girl named Sarah Chen. It had over 2 million signatures now. The girl had written, "Space exploration inspires kids like me to study science. It makes us believe the future can be better. Please don't take that away from us." Catherine had received a physical letter too, handwritten, from a 14-year-old in Ohio. "Dear Judge Brennan, I want to be an astronaut when I grow up. SpaceX makes me think it's possible. Why are you killing my dream?" Catherine had not known how to respond to that letter, How do you explain corporate fiduciary duty to a child with dreams of space? She sat back down at her desk and opened her laptop. She typed SpaceX achievements into the search bar. The results were staggering. SpaceX had launched 96 successful orbital missions in 2023 alone. They had landed and reused rocket boosters over 200 times. Their Falcon 9 rocket was the most reliable launch vehicle in history. They had restored American capability to launch astronauts after the space shuttle retired. Their Starlink satellites provided internet to remote areas worldwide. They were building Starship, which could revolutionize space travel. All of this happened under Elon Musk's leadership. But did that mean he was above the law? Catherine's mentor, retired Judge Richard Hammond, had warned her about this case. "Catherine," Hammond had said over coffee last week, "you're not just ruling on corporate law, you're ruling on the future. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" "The law is the law," Catherine had replied. "It applies to everyone." "Does it?" Hammond had asked quietly. "Or are there times when the law needs wisdom more than rigidity?" Catherine hadn't had a good answer then. She still didn't. She looked at the calendar on her wall. 28 days until the final hearing. 28 days to decide the fate of a company, a dream, and possibly humanity's future in space. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from her sister. "That petition from the high school girl now has 3 million signatures. Jeremy signed it. So did I. I'm sorry, Kate, but I think you're wrong about this." Catherine stared at the message for a long time. Then she closed her laptop, turned off her office light, and went home. She had a feeling she wouldn't sleep tonight either. Marcus had never seen Elon Musk look so tired. The billionaire stood at the front of High Bay 1, surrounded by 5,000 SpaceX employees. Behind him, a half-assembled Starship prototype gleamed under the industrial lights. The massive silver ship towered 7 stories high, its heat shield tiles arranged in perfect hexagonal patterns. Musk cleared his throat. The crowd fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. "I'm not going to sugarcoat this," Musk began. His voice was hoarse, like he had been up all night. "The judge's ruling is serious. If we can't change her mind in 30 days, I'll be removed from day-to-day operations at SpaceX." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Marcus felt his stomach clench. "Some of you are probably wondering what happens then," Musk continued. "Will SpaceX survive? Will your jobs be safe? Will we still go to Mars?" He paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I don't have easy answers, but I want to tell you why I started this company. Not for the money, I made plenty from PayPal. Not for fame, honestly, the attention makes my life harder." A few people laughed nervously. "I started SpaceX because I genuinely believe humanity needs a backup planet. Earth is precious. It's our home, but it's also fragile. Climate change, nuclear weapons, asteroid impacts, pandemics, any of these could end our species." Musk's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "Mars isn't Plan B because Earth doesn't matter. Mars is Plan B because Earth matters too much to risk being humanity's only home. We need to become a multiplanetary species. Not in 1,000 years, not in 100 years. Now, in our lifetimes." Marcus found himself nodding. This was why he had joined SpaceX. This was why he had given up a safe job at Boeing. This was why he worked 16-hour days and missed baseball games and school plays, because the dream mattered. "I know I'm not perfect," Musk said quietly. "I know I screw up. I say dumb things on social media. I get distracted by other projects. I probably have ADHD or something. Never been officially diagnosed, but come on, it's pretty obvious." More nervous laughter. "But here's what I want you to understand. Every single thing I do, every company I start, every crazy project, it all connects to the same goal. making humanity multiplanetary. He started counting on his fingers. Tesla exists to accelerate sustainable energy because we need Earth to be healthy while we're expanding to other planets. The Boring Company exists because we'll need to dig tunnels on Mars. Neuralink exists because the journey to Mars is long and we'll need better human-computer interfaces. Even X, yes, even that disaster, exists because we'll need robust communication networks across planets. Marcus had never thought about it that way. He had always seen Musk's other companies as distractions, but maybe they were all pieces of the same puzzle. The judge thinks I'm spread too thin, Musk continued. She thinks I can't handle all these responsibilities. And you know what? Maybe she's right. Maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. But I'm not going to let her stop us. I'm not going to let a courtroom in Delaware determine whether humanity reaches the stars. His voice rose with intensity. So here's what we're going to do. In 29 days, one day before the judge's final hearing, we're going to launch the most ambitious Starship test flight ever attempted. Marcus leaned forward. What was Musk planning? Not just orbit, not just a suborbital hop. We're sending Starship around the moon and bringing it home. A full Apollo 8-style mission, but with a ship designed to carry 100 people. The crowd erupted. People shouted, cheered, gasped. Marcus felt his heart pounding. Going around the moon in 29 days, it was insane, it was impossible. It was exactly the kind of thing SpaceX did. If we succeed, Musk said, his voice cutting through the noise, maybe it proves I'm not a liability. Maybe it proves that I'm exactly who SpaceX needs. That the chaos, the scattered focus, the crazy ideas, maybe that's actually what makes this work. He paused, and if we fail, his voice dropped. Well, maybe the judge is right about me. The room fell silent again. I need all of you, Musk said, looking around at every section of the crowd. Engineers, technicians, welders, cooks, janitors, everyone. This is going to be the hardest 29 days of your lives. We're going to work around the clock. We're going to solve problems that have never been solved before. We're going to do something that most people think is impossible. He smiled slightly. But that's kind of our thing, isn't it? Doing impossible things. The crowd roared with approval. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks. Around him, engineers were crying openly. Jen Rodriguez, the propulsion engineer, grabbed his arm. We can do this, she said fiercely. We can actually do this. Musk raised his hands for silence. I want to be clear about something. This is voluntary. If you don't want to be part of this, I understand. You have families. You have lives outside SpaceX. I'm asking for an enormous sacrifice, and I won't think less of anyone who says no. Nobody moved. Nobody left. But for those who stay, Musk continued, I promise you this, win or lose, you'll be part of something that matters. You'll be part of the moment when humanity decided to fight for its future. When we looked at the stars and said, yes, we're coming. He stepped back from the microphone, then seemed to think of something else. He stepped forward again. One more thing. I know some of you think I'm doing this for my ego, that I can't stand the idea of losing to a judge, that this is about pride. He shook his head. It's not. I have a son who died. Nevada Alexander Musk. He was 10 weeks old when he passed away from SIDS. That was 22 years ago, and I still think about him every day. The room was absolutely silent now. Marcus had never heard Musk talk about this publicly. I think about the future he never got to see, Musk said, his voice cracking slightly. The things he would never experience, the stars he would never visit. He wiped his eyes quickly. That's why I do this. Not for me. For all the babies being born today. For your children, for your grandchildren. I want them to look up at the night sky and know they can go there. I want them to have options, possibilities, hope. Musk looked directly at the crowd. So when you're working 18-hour days for the next month, when you're exhausted and frustrated and wondering why you're doing this, remember that. Remember that we're building a future worth living in, not just for us, for everyone who comes after us. He stepped away from the microphone. Okay, department heads, meet me in conference room 3 in 15 minutes. Everyone else, your managers will give you assignments. Let's get to work. The crowd began to disperse, buzzing with nervous energy. Marcus stood still for a moment, overwhelmed. Around the moon, in 29 days, it was crazy. It was impossible. It was going to happen. As Marcus walked toward the exit, he noticed something odd. A woman standing near the back wall wearing a business suit. She looked out of place among the engineers in jeans and SpaceX shirts. She was taking notes in a small leather notebook. Marcus walked closer. The woman noticed him looking and quickly closed her notebook. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked. "Just observing," the woman said coolly. She showed him a badge. "Court observer. Judge Brennan sent me to monitor operations." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The judge was watching them, evaluating them, looking for any excuse to prove that Musk couldn't handle his responsibilities. The woman walked past Marcus toward the exit. As she passed, Marcus heard her mutter something under her breath. 29 days to the moon. This is going to be a disaster. Marcus stood frozen, watching her leave. Then he pulled out his phone and texted Jennifer. "Going to be late every night for the next month. I'm sorry, but we're going to the moon." Jennifer's response came immediately. "Go save the dream. Emma and I will be fine. We believe in you." Marcus smiled through his tears. Then he went to find out what impossible task he would be assigned. Day 28 until launch. Marcus's assignment was impossible, just as he had expected. "You want us to do what?" he asked, staring at the technical specifications on the screen. Tom Chen, the senior propulsion engineer, pointed at the data. "Modify the heat shield to handle lunar return velocities. Starship's current tiles are designed for orbital re-entry at 17,000 miles per hour. Coming back from the moon means hitting atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour. That's 8,000 miles per hour faster," Marcus said. "The temperatures will be completely different. We'd need to redesign the entire thermal protection system." "Which is why you have 28 days instead of 28 months, Tom said dryly. "Welcome to SpaceX." Marcus spent that first day buried in calculations. Heat transfer equations, ablation rates, material stress tolerances. His computer screen filled with numbers that all pointed to the same conclusion. This was nearly impossible. Nearly, but not completely. At midnight, he finally went home. Jennifer was still awake, reading in bed. "How was it?" she asked. Marcus collapsed onto the mattress without taking off his shoes. "We're trying to compress 3 years of engineering work into 4 weeks. Can you do it?" "I don't know, maybe, probably not, but we're going to try anyway." Jennifer kissed his forehead. "That's the man I married, the one who thinks impossible just means difficult." Marcus fell asleep in his clothes. Day 25 until launch. Sarah Chen's petition had reached 5 million signatures. News organizations were calling it a phenomenon, a grassroots movement of students, space enthusiasts, and ordinary people who believed in SpaceX's mission. Sarah had done interviews with CNN, NBC, and the BBC. Her face was everywhere. Reporters asked her the same questions over and over. "Why does SpaceX matter to you? What do you say to people who think Elon Musk needs adult supervision? Do you really think a teenager's petition will influence a federal judge?" To that last question, Sarah always gave the same answer. "I don't know if it will change her mind, but I know staying silent definitely won't." Her parents were proud and terrified at the same time. Her father worried about the attention. Her mother worried about Sarah's schoolwork slipping, but her grandfather in Taiwan called her every day. "You are fighting for the future," he told her in Mandarin. "That takes courage. I am proud of you, Bao Bei." At school, Sarah had become a celebrity. Kids stopped her in hallways to talk about space. Teachers mentioned her in class. Even people who had never cared about rockets before wanted to know more, but not everyone was supportive. In history class, a boy named Derek raised his hand during a discussion about the Industrial Revolution. "Ms. Martinez, isn't Sarah's petition kind of dumb?" he asked. "I mean, Elon Musk is a billionaire. Why does he need a bunch of teenagers to defend him?" The class went silent. Everyone looked at Sarah. Ms. Martinez, the teacher, raised an eyebrow. "Sarah, would you like to respond?" Sarah's hands shook slightly, but she stood up. "It's not about defending Elon Musk," she said. "It's about defending the dream. SpaceX isn't just a company. It's proof that humans can do hard things, that we can solve problems everyone says are impossible." She looked directly at Derek. "My dad is a janitor. He cleans classrooms at Caltech, one of the best science schools in the world. He was an engineer in Taiwan, but his degree didn't count here. So he mops floors while college kids study the stuff he used to teach." Her voice grew stronger. "SpaceX gives people like my dad hope. It shows that the future isn't just for people born in the right country, with the right connections, with the right last name. It's for anyone willing to work hard and dream big." The classroom was completely silent. "So no," Sarah continued, "I'm not defending a billionaire. I'm defending my future, and yours too, even if you don't realize it yet." She sat down. Her heart was pounding. Ms. Martinez smiled. "Well said, Sarah. That's exactly the kind of critical thinking I try to teach in this class." After school, Derek found Sarah at her locker. "Hey," he said awkwardly, I didn't think about it that way, about your dad and stuff." "It's okay," Sarah said. "Can I sign your petition?" Sarah smiled. "Yeah, you can. Day 20 until launch." Judge Catherine Brennan received an unexpected visitor. Dr. Ellen Ochoa, the former director of NASA's Johnson Space Center, stood in her office doorway. Dr. Ochoa was a legend, the first Latina woman to go to space, a veteran of 4 space shuttle missions. "Judge Brennan, thank you for seeing me," Dr. Ochoa said. Catherine gestured to a chair. "Dr. Ochoa, this is an honor, though I suspect you're here to tell me I'm making a mistake." "Actually, I'm here to give you context," Dr. Ochoa said, sitting down. "I worked at NASA for 30 years. I've seen what happens when we try to manage innovation through committees and bureaucracy." She leaned forward. "After the Space Shuttle program ended in 2011, America couldn't launch its own astronauts. We had to pay Russia $70 million per seat on their Soyuz spacecraft. It was humiliating." "I remember," Catherine said. "Then SpaceX came along. They developed Crew Dragon faster and cheaper than anyone thought possible. They restored American spaceflight capability. And they did it because Elon Musk was willing to take risks that government programs and traditional contractors wouldn't take." Dr. Ochoa pulled out a folder. "I brought you data. SpaceX launches cost $67 million. The same payload on a United Launch Alliance rocket costs $400 million. SpaceX has launched 96 missions this year. ULA has launched 8. She slid the folder across the desk. "I'm not saying Elon Musk is perfect. He's difficult, he's impulsive, he makes mistakes, but he gets results that nobody else can achieve." Catherine looked through the data. The numbers were staggering. "What exactly are you asking me to do, Dr. Ochoa?" I'm asking you to consider what we lose if you remove him from SpaceX, not just a company, not just jobs. We lose momentum. We lose innovation. We lose hope. Dr. Ochoa stood to leave. Space exploration isn't just about technology, Judge Brennan. It's about showing humanity what we're capable of. When Apollo 11 landed on the moon, people around the world looked up and felt pride, not just in America, but in human achievement. She walked to the door, then turned back. SpaceX makes people feel that way again. My grandchildren talk about going to Mars the way I talked about becoming an astronaut. Please don't take that away from them. After Dr. Ochoa left, Catherine sat alone with the folder. Her phone buzzed. A text from her nephew Jeremy. "And Kate, please, I'm begging you, don't kill the dream." Catherine didn't respond. She couldn't, not yet. Day 15 until launch. At SpaceX, the pace was brutal. Marcus hadn't been home in 3 days. He showered in the facility's locker room and slept on a cot in the break room for a few hours each night. The heat shield problem was slowly getting solved. They had identified new materials that could handle the higher temperatures. Testing showed promising results, but there were 1,000 other problems. The navigation systems needed upgrading for translunar trajectory calculations. The communications array needed modification to handle the increased distance. The life support systems needed testing for the longer mission duration, and they had just 15 days left. Engineers were dropping from exhaustion. One woman passed out at her workstation and had to be taken to the hospital for dehydration. Another engineer fell asleep while welding and nearly caused an accident. Musk was everywhere at once. He slept maybe 2 hours a night, mostly on a couch in mission control. He reviewed every technical decision, pushed every team harder. "We can sleep when we're dead," he told them, "or after we get back from the moon." Jennifer brought Emma to visit Marcus on day 15. His daughter barely recognized him. He had lost weight, grown a beard, and had dark circles under his eyes. "Daddy, you look sick," Emma said, worried. "I'm okay, sweetie," Marcus lied. "We're just very busy." "Are you really going to the moon?" "Not me personally, but Starship is, and I'm helping make sure it gets there safely." Emma hugged him tight. "I'm proud of you, Daddy." Those 4 words made every sleepless night worth it. Day 10 until launch. Sarah's petition had reached 8 million signatures. It was now one of the largest online petitions in history. Celebrities had signed it. Scientists had signed it. Even some politicians had signed it, though carefully, without making public statements. Sarah appeared on 60 Minutes. The interviewer, a serious woman named Leslie Stahl, asked tough questions. "Sarah, some people say you're being manipulated. That SpaceX is using a teenage girl for PR purposes." Sarah looked directly into the camera. "Nobody is using me. I started this petition because I believe in what SpaceX represents. And if caring about humanity's future makes me naive, then I guess I'm naive." The interview went viral. Judge Brennan watched it from her home office. She watched this 16-year-old girl speak with more passion and conviction than most adults she knew. And Catherine wondered, was she about to destroy the hope that burned in Sarah's eyes? The final hearing was now just 10 days away. Day 2 until launch. At 2 o'clock in the morning, disaster struck. Marcus was in the test facility when the alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the building. Engineers scrambled, shouting over the noise. "Abort! Abort the static fire!" Through the reinforced glass window, Marcus watched in horror as flames erupted from Starship's engine compartment. One of the 33 Raptor engines had exploded during the test firing. The automatic fire suppression system kicked in, flooding the area with foam and water. Within 30 seconds, the fire was out, but the damage was done. Tom Chen pulled up the diagnostic data on his tablet. His face went pale. The turbopump failed catastrophically. Shrapnel damaged 3 adjacent engines. And the thrust structure has stress fractures. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Can we repair it? Repair, maybe. In time for launch in 48 hours. Tom shook his head. No way, it's impossible. Word spread through the facility like wildfire. Engineers gathered in small groups, talking in hushed voices. Some were crying. Others just stared at the damaged starship in shock. They had worked 27 days straight, solved hundreds of problems, made the impossible possible. And now, with 48 hours to go, it was over. Elon Musk arrived 30 minutes later, his hair wild, still wearing pajama pants under his jacket. He had been sleeping for once when someone called him. He walked straight to the damaged engine bay and stared at the twisted metal and burned components. Nobody spoke. They just watched him, waiting. Finally, Musk turned around. "How long to replace the engines?" he asked. "Elon, we can't," Tom started. "I didn't ask if we can, I asked how long." Tom pulled up schematics on his tablet. To remove 4 engines, install new ones, run diagnostics, and do a static fire test. Minimum 72 hours, probably longer. "We have 48 hours, Musk said, "which is why it's impossible." Musk looked at the gathered engineers. His eyes were bloodshot from exhaustion, but they burned with intensity. "We have replacement engines in storage, right?" "Yes, but..." "And we have the best engineers in the world standing right here, right?" "Elon, even if we skip some steps." "We're not skipping steps, we're doing them faster." Musk pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'm calling in everyone. Night shift comes in early. Day shift stays late. We'll work in rotating teams so everyone gets at least a few hours of sleep." He looked at Tom. "You said 72 hours minimum. That's based on normal procedures, normal pace. But we're not normal. We've never been normal. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to replace those engines in 36 hours. Then we'll have 12 hours for testing before launch." "Elon, that's..." "Impossible," Musk smiled grimly. "How many times have people told us something was impossible? Landing rockets was impossible. Reusing boosters was impossible. Commercial crew was impossible. Going around the moon in 30 days was impossible." He walked to the center of the group. "We're going to launch in 48 hours, not because it's easy, but because if we don't, we lose everything. The judge wins, the skeptics win, and humanity loses its best chance at becoming a multiplanetary species." Marcus felt something shift inside him. The despair that had been crushing his chest lifted slightly. "I need team leaders," Musk said. "Who's willing to coordinate engine removal?" A hand went up, then another, then a dozen more. "Who can handle the installation?" More hands. "Who's on diagnostics?" Nearly everyone raised their hands. Musk nodded. "Okay. Let's get to work. We're burning daylight." "It's 2 in the morning, someone pointed out. "Then we're burning moonlight. Move. Day 1 until launch." By sunrise, they had removed all 4 damaged engines. By noon, the first replacement engine was installed. By sunset, all 4 were in place. Marcus worked until his hands shook from fatigue. He drank so much coffee that his heart felt like it was vibrating. Around him, other engineers pushed through exhaustion, driven by something beyond logic. They were driven by belief. At 3 in the morning, now just 5 hours before the scheduled launch, they began the final static fire test. Everyone gathered in mission control, holding their breath. The engines ignited. Flames shot from the base of Starship. Data flooded across dozens of screens. "Thrust nominal," someone called out. "Temperatures good. Pressure stable. Vibration within acceptable range." 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds. The engines shut down on schedule, perfect. The control room erupted in exhausted cheers. Engineers hugged each other. Some collapsed in their chairs, crying with relief. Musk stood at the front of the room, watching the data. He didn't celebrate. He just nodded once, then walked out to make final preparations. Launch day 6:00 a.m. 100,000 people lined the beaches near Boca Chica, Texas. They had been arriving for days in RVs, cars, on buses. Space enthusiasts from around the world. Families with children. Elderly couples who remembered watching Apollo launches on black and white TVs. News helicopters circled overhead. Every major network was broadcasting live. The SpaceX YouTube stream had 15 million people watching, and the number was climbing every minute. Sarah Chen stood on the beach with her parents, shivering in the cool morning air. They had driven non-stop from California, 23 hours in their old Honda Civic. Her father had taken time off work. Her mother had called in sick. They couldn't afford the trip, but Sarah's grandfather had wired them money from Taiwan. "You must be there," he had told Sarah on the phone. "You must witness history." Now standing on the sand as the sun began to rise, Sarah could see Starship in the distance. The massive silver rocket gleamed in the early light, vapor streaming from its sides as it filled with propellant. "It's so big," Sarah's mother whispered. It was. Starship stood nearly 400 feet tall, taller than the Statue of Liberty, the most powerful rocket ever built, and in 2 hours it would fly around the moon. Around them, the crowd was a mix of emotions: excitement, fear, hope, desperation. Many people held signs. "Godspeed, Starship. Save our dreams. Let Elon work. Humanity's future takes flight today." Sarah had made her own sign, simple black letters on white poster board: "For everyone who dares to dream." A reporter with a camera approached them. "Miss Chen, I recognize you from your interviews. How does it feel to be here?" Sarah looked at the rocket, then at her parents, then at the thousands of people gathered on the beach. "It feels like the whole world is holding its breath," she said. Mission Control 7:00 a.m. Marcus sat at his console, monitoring the propulsion systems. Around him, 200 flight controllers worked at their stations. The room was silent except for the constant stream of technical updates over the communication loops. "Flight, this is prop. Propellant loading proceeding nominally." "Copy prop." "Flight, this is GNC. Guidance systems checked out. We are go." "Copy GNC." Elon Musk sat in the front row. For once, he wasn't tweeting, wasn't joking, wasn't even talking. He just watched the screens, his jaw clenched tight. Next to him sat Gwynne Shotwell, SpaceX's president and COO. She had her hands folded in her lap, but Marcus could see her knuckles were white. The flight director, a woman named Dr. Sarah Park, stood at her console overlooking the room. "All stations, this is flight. We are go for launch on schedule. T-1 hour." Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to Jennifer and Emma. "Almost time. I love you both." Emma's response came immediately. "We're watching on TV. Your rocket looks awesome, Daddy." Marcus smiled despite his nerves. Delaware 8:00 a.m. Judge Catherine Brennan sat in her home office, laptop open to the SpaceX live stream. She had told herself she wouldn't watch, that it would be inappropriate, that she needed to maintain objectivity for tomorrow's hearing, but she couldn't look away. On the screen, Starship stood ready. The countdown clock ticked down. Commentators discussed the mission profile. "This is an unprecedented attempt," one analyst was saying. "SpaceX has never flown Starship on a lunar trajectory before. The heat shield has been modified in less than 30 days. If anything goes wrong..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Catherine's phone buzzed, a text from Jeremy. "Please, Aunt Kate, watch this. Really watch it. Then tell me you can take this away from us." Catherine stared at the message. Then she turned up the volume on her laptop. The beach, 7:45 a.m. The crowd fell silent as the countdown entered its final 15 minutes. Sarah held her mother's hand on one side and her father's on the other. Around them, 100,000 people barely breathed. A family next to them had a young boy, maybe 7 years old, sitting on his father's shoulders. "Daddy, why is everyone so quiet?" the boy whispered. "Because we're watching something important, buddy. Something you'll tell your grandchildren about." "What if it explodes?" The father hesitated. Then we'll remember that people tried to do something brave, and trying matters even if we fail." Sarah heard that exchange and felt tears building in her eyes. Mission Control, 7:50 a.m. T-minus 10 minutes, Dr. Park announced. "All stations, final go-no-go poll." She went around the room calling each station. Prop. Go flight. GNC. Go flight. ESTLSS. Go flight. One by one, every station reported go. Every system was ready. Dr. Park turned to Elon Musk. "Mr. Musk, we are go for launch." Musk nodded. "Light this candle, T-minus 30 seconds. The crowd on the beach started counting down. 100,000 voices merged into one. 30, 29, 28. Sarah's voice joined them, tears streaming down her face. 2019-18. In Mission Control, Marcus watched his screens. All values nominal, all systems green. 10-9, 8. The engines began to ignite. One by one, 33 Raptor engines roared to life. 7, 6, 5. The ground shook. The air vibrated. 4, 3, 2, 1. Lift off. Starship lifted off the pad in a column of fire and thunder. The sound hit Sarah a few seconds later, a deep, chest-crushing roar that made her bones vibrate. It was louder than anything she had ever experienced, louder than thunder, louder than jet engines. It was the sound of 17 million pounds of thrust fighting against gravity, and winning. The massive silver rocket climbed into the blue Texas sky, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The exhaust plume stretched for miles, a brilliant white trail against the morning blue. Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only watch as humanity's boldest dream rose toward the heavens. Around her, people were screaming, crying, hugging strangers. Her mother sobbed openly. Her father had his phone out, recording, his hands shaking so badly the video would be unwatchable. Sarah just stared, tears running down her cheeks. "Go," she whispered. "Please, please go." In Mission Control, Marcus watched the telemetry data flood across his screens. "Thrust nominal on all engines," he called out. "Trajectory good," another voice reported. "Max Q in 30 seconds, Dr. Park announced. Max Q, maximum dynamic pressure. The moment when atmospheric forces put the most stress on the rocket, the most dangerous part of the ascent. Starship pushed through Max Q without problems. Vehicle is supersonic, someone called. Altitude 50,000 feet. All engines performing nominally. Marcus allowed himself a tiny breath of relief. They were doing it, actually doing it. Then, at T plus 170 seconds, the moment came for stage separation. The Super Heavy booster, the first stage, was supposed to separate from Starship, flip around, and fly back to the launch site. SpaceX had done this hundreds of times with Falcon 9. It should have been routine, but nothing about this mission was routine. Sarah watched through binoculars as the bright point of light in the sky suddenly became 2 points. Stage separation, someone in the crowd shouted. The booster began its flip maneuver. Sarah could see it tumbling end over end, engines firing to control its descent. Then something went wrong. Through the binoculars, Sarah saw the booster wobbling. The grid fins, the control surfaces that steered it through the atmosphere, weren't moving correctly. "Something's wrong," her father said, also watching through binoculars. "It's not stabilizing." The crowd noise changed from cheers to worried murmurs. In mission control, alarms screamed. "Flight, this is booster control. We've lost hydraulic pressure to the grid fins. The booster is tumbling out of control." Marcus's heart stopped. The super-heavy booster weighed 250 tons. If it crashed in the wrong place. "Flight, trajectory analysis shows impact in the Gulf of Mexico, approximately 3 miles offshore." Relief washed through the room, not on land, not on the densely populated areas near the launch site, but the booster was still falling, still out of control, and they could do nothing but watch. "Impact in 45 seconds, someone called. On the large screen at the front of Mission Control, camera footage showed the booster tumbling through the sky, completely out of control. Elon Musk stood up from his chair, his face white. "Starship status." Dr. Park demanded, her voice steady despite the crisis. "Starship is nominal flight. All systems green. Trajectory perfect. Upper stage is still flying." The room held its breath as the booster plummeted toward the Gulf. 10 seconds, 5 seconds, impact. The booster hit the water 3 miles offshore. The explosion sent a massive plume of water 500 feet into the air. The sound reached the beaches seconds later, a distant boom that rattled windows in Brownsville 20 miles away. Sarah watched the water column rise and fall. Her heart sank. "Did it fail?" someone in the crowd asked. "Is the mission over?" But then the commentator on someone's radio said something that made everyone pause. "The booster is lost, but Starship, the upper stage, is still flying, still nominal. The mission continues." The crowd erupted in confused cheers, relief mixed with concern. In Mission Control, Dr. Park's voice cut through the chaos. "All stations focus on Starship. The booster is lost, but the mission continues. I repeat, mission continues." Marcus forced himself to focus on his screens. She was right. The booster crash was a failure, a significant one, but Starship was still flying, still perfect, still heading to the moon. "Flight, this is prop. All engines performing. Propellant consumption nominal." "Flight, this is GNC. We are on trajectory for translunar injection." "Flight, this is thermal. Heat shield temperatures nominal." One by one, every station reported good news. The mission wasn't over. The dream wasn't dead. Elon Musk slowly sat back down. He looked 10 years older than he had 10 minutes ago. But he was still there, still watching. 36 hours later, lunar flyby. Starship flew around the far side of the moon at 240,000 miles from Earth. For 37 minutes, it passed behind the moon, out of contact with Earth. Radio signals couldn't penetrate the massive satellite. Everyone on Earth simply had to wait and trust that Starship would emerge on the other side. Sarah hadn't slept in 2 days. She sat in her hotel room in Texas, eyes glued to her laptop, watching the SpaceX stream with thousands of others around the world. When Starship disappeared behind the moon, the commentator said, "And now we wait. If everything went according to plan, Starship will reappear in 37 minutes. If something went wrong..." He didn't finish the sentence. Sarah's father sat next to her, his hand on her shoulder. Her mother had fallen asleep in the chair, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster. The minutes crawled by. 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 37 minutes, nothing. Sarah felt panic rising in her chest. What if something had gone wrong? What if Starship had crashed into the moon? What if? "Signal acquired," the commentator shouted. "We have signal. Starship has emerged from behind the moon." The feed showed the most beautiful image Sarah had ever seen, Earth rising over the lunar horizon. A tiny blue and white marble against the black of space, hanging over the gray, cratered surface of the moon. It looked exactly like the famous Apollo 8 Earthrise photo from 1968, except this time it was taken by a SpaceX Starship, a ship designed to carry 100 people. Sarah burst into tears. Her father pulled her into a hug. You see, Bao Bei, humans can still fly. Day 3 returned to Earth. The most dangerous part came 3 days after launch. Starship had to re-enter Earth's atmosphere at 25,000 miles per hour. The heat shield that Marcus and his team had modified in just 30 days would be tested like never before. If it failed, Starship would burn up. The mission would end in tragedy, and the judge would have all the evidence she needed that Elon Musk was reckless and dangerous. Marcus was back in mission control, even though he wasn't on shift. He couldn't stay away. Couldn't bear to watch from home. Jennifer and Emma were there too in the observation gallery. Marcus had gotten them special passes. Entry interface in 5 minutes, Dr. Park announced. Entry interface. The moment when Starship would hit the upper atmosphere and begin experiencing heating. Flight, this is thermal. Heat shield is ready. Flight, this is GNC. Entry attitude is perfect. Flight, this is calm. Expect loss of signal for approximately 4 minutes during peak heating. 4 minutes, 240 seconds when they would have no contact with Starship. No way to know if the heat shield was holding. Entry interface, Dr. Park called. Godspeed, Starship. The telemetry data showed temperatures climbing. 1,000 degrees, 2,000 degrees. Then the signal cut out. Complete silence in mission control. Marcus stared at his blank screens. His hands gripped the edge of his console so tightly his knuckles turned white. In the gallery, Emma pressed her face against the glass. Is Daddy's rocket okay? She asked Jennifer. I don't know, baby. We have to wait. The seconds felt like hours. 1 minute passed, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Flight, we should have signal back, someone said nervously. 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes, still nothing. Marcus felt sick. They had failed. The heat shield hadn't held. Starship was gone. Then, signal acquired, someone shouted. The screens lit up with data. Telemetry good, heat shield holding, velocity decreasing. The control room erupted in cheers. Altitude 200,000 feet. Heat shield performed perfectly. Deploying control fins. Engines preparing for landing burn. On the big screen, external cameras showed Starship falling through the atmosphere, its nose glowing orange from residual heat. Then it flipped vertical, exactly as designed, and the Raptor engines fired. The ship slowed, descended, controlled. At exactly 7:42 a.m., 3 days after launch, Starship splashed down in the Pacific Ocean, 100 miles west of Hawaii. Recovery ships were already en route. Mission control went absolutely crazy. Engineers jumped from their chairs. People hugged, cried, screamed with joy. Marcus stood up, overwhelmed. They had done it, actually done it. Tom Chen grabbed him in a bear hug. We did it, Webb. We went to the moon and came back. Up in the gallery, Emma pressed her hands against the glass, bouncing with excitement. Daddy, Daddy, your rocket landed. Marcus looked up at his daughter. Her face was pure joy, pure wonder. This was why he did it, for her future. Elon Musk stood at the front of the room, looking decades older than he had 3 days ago. But he was smiling, actually smiling. Not bad for 30 days' work, he said quietly. The day after landing, Delaware Chancery Court, Wilmington. Judge Catherine Brennan entered her courtroom to absolute silence. Every seat was filled. People stood along the walls, packed shoulder to shoulder. Security had turned away hundreds more outside. The hallways were jammed with reporters, cameras, and spectators who had traveled from across the country. This wasn't just a corporate law case anymore. This was history. Catherine took her seat behind the bench and looked out at the sea of faces. In the front row sat Elon Musk, looking exhausted but alert. Next to him was his legal team, led by attorney James Chen. On the other side sat Richard Morrison and his lawyer, Elena Rodriguez. Morrison was 72 years old, a former aerospace executive who had invested $2 million in SpaceX 15 years ago. That investment was now worth over $50 million, but money wasn't enough for him. He wanted control, accountability, order. In the gallery, Catherine spotted familiar faces. Marcus Webb, the SpaceX engineer, sitting with his wife and daughter. Sarah Chen, the teenage activist, sitting with her parents. Dr. Ellen Ochoa, the former NASA astronaut. And in the back corner, trying to be inconspicuous, was Catherine's nephew Jeremy. Catherine cleared her throat. "This court will come to order." The murmuring stopped instantly. "We're here for the final hearing in Morrison v. Musk regarding the plaintiff's request for injunctive relief, removing Mr. Musk from day-to-day operations at Space Exploration Technologies Corporation." She looked at Elena Rodriguez. "Counselor, you may present your closing arguments." Rodriguez stood, confident and polished in her navy suit. "Your Honor, the events of the past 30 days have only confirmed what we've been saying all along. Mr. Musk is brilliant, but he's reckless. He's visionary, but he's scattered. He's capable of amazing things, but he cannot be trusted to manage a multi-billion-dollar corporation responsibly." She clicked a remote. A screen behind her displayed footage of the booster explosion. Yesterday's mission was hailed as a success by the media, but let's look at what actually happened. A super heavy booster worth approximately $70 million crashed into the Gulf of Mexico. It was completely destroyed. This happened because Mr. Musk pushed his team to work at an impossible pace, cutting corners, skipping safety protocols. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest. That wasn't true. They hadn't cut corners. They had worked harder than they'd ever worked, but they had followed every protocol. Rodriguez continued. "Mr. Musk's behavior over the past month has been erratic at best, dangerous at worst. He forced his employees to work around the clock for 30 days straight. One engineer was hospitalized for exhaustion. Another fell asleep while welding and nearly caused an accident." She paused for effect. "Yes, Starship made it to the moon and back. That's impressive, but at what cost? At the cost of employee health, at the cost of safety, at the cost of responsible corporate governance." Rodriguez walked closer to the judge's bench. "Your Honor, we're not asking you to ban Mr. Musk from SpaceX. We're asking you to protect SpaceX from Mr. Musk's worst impulses. Require adult supervision. Require a conventional CEO to handle day-to-day operations. Let Mr. Musk be the visionary and chief engineer, but not the person responsible for corporate governance." She returned to her seat. "That's not punishment, that's common sense." The courtroom was silent. Judge Brennan turned to the defense table. "Mr. Chen, your response." James Chen stood. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He had been practicing corporate law for 35 years. "Your Honor, my colleague makes a compelling case for conventional management. Unfortunately, SpaceX is not a conventional company." He walked to the center of the courtroom. Everything counsel described as reckless and dangerous, the intense work pace, the ambitious deadlines, the willingness to take risks, that's exactly what makes SpaceX successful. Traditional aerospace companies take 10 years to develop new rockets. SpaceX does it in months. Boeing and Lockheed charge $400 million per launch. SpaceX charges $67 million. He clicked his own remote. The screen showed a graph comparing SpaceX's launch costs to competitors. The booster that crashed yesterday, yes, it was expensive, but SpaceX has landed over 200 boosters successfully. They've proven reusability works. One failure doesn't erase 200 successes. Chen's voice grew stronger. Counsel talks about employee health, but those employees chose to be there. Nobody forced them to work those hours. They did it because they believe in the mission, because they want to be part of something that matters. He paused. "Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness, with your permission." Judge Brennan raised an eyebrow. "This is closing arguments, counselor." "I understand, but I believe this testimony is crucial to your decision. It will only take a few minutes." Catherine hesitated, then nodded. "Very well, call your witness." The defense calls Marcus Webb. Marcus froze. He hadn't been told he would testify. His heart pounded as he stood and walked to the witness stand. After being sworn in, Marcus sat down, his hands trembling slightly. James Chen approached. "Mr. Webb, how long have you worked at SpaceX?" 12 years, Marcus said, his voice barely steady. "And what do you do there?" "I'm a propulsion engineer. I work on the Raptor engines." "You were part of the team that modified the heat shield for the lunar mission." "Yes, sir." Mr. Webb, opposing counsel, said Mr. Musk forced you to work around the clock. Is that true? Marcus looked at Alina Rodriguez, then at Judge Brennan. "No one forced me," he said. "Mr. Musk asked for volunteers. He told us we could say no and he wouldn't think less of us. But I said yes." "Why?" Marcus thought about how to answer, how to put into words everything he felt. "Because it mattered," he finally said. "Because we weren't just building a rocket, we were proving something important." Which was that humans can still do hard things, that we haven't given up on the future. Chen nodded. "Tell us about the culture at SpaceX. What's it like working there?" Marcus felt more confident now. This was something he knew. "It's intense. It's demanding. Some days I go home exhausted. But it's also amazing. Mr. Musk isn't some distant CEO who sits in an office. He's on the factory floor. He understands the engineering. I've personally discussed technical problems with him dozens of times." "Is that unusual?" "At Boeing, where I worked before, I never met the CEO, not once in 5 years. At SpaceX, Elon knows my name. He knows what I work on. He cares about the details." Chen walked back to his table and picked up a folder. "Mr. Webb, do you have children?" "Yes, a daughter, Emma. She's 9 years old." "What does she think about your work?" Marcus smiled. "She wants to be an astronaut. She has a poster of Mars on her wall. She talks about going there someday like other kids talk about going to Disneyland." "And do you think she'll get that chance?" Marcus looked directly at Judge Brennan. "If SpaceX stays the way it is, with Mr. Musk leading it, then yes. I think my daughter might actually walk on Mars someday. But if you change SpaceX into a conventional company with conventional management and conventional thinking." He paused. "Then Mars stays a dream, and my daughter becomes one more person who gave up on the future." The courtroom was completely silent. "Thank you, Mr. Webb," Chen said. "No further questions." Rodriguez stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Webb, you're obviously loyal to Mr. Musk, but don't you think employee safety should come first?" "Of course," Marcus said, "but working hard isn't the same as being unsafe. We followed every safety protocol. We tested everything. Yes, the booster crashed, but it crashed exactly where we predicted it would if something went wrong. That's not recklessness. That's engineering." Rodriguez tried a different approach. "What about Mr. Musk's other companies? Doesn't his divided attention concern you?" "Sometimes," Marcus admitted. "But here's the thing, every problem we solve at SpaceX helps his other companies, and vice versa. Tesla's battery technology helps our power systems. Boring companies' tunnel expertise will help on Mars. It's all connected." Rodriguez sat down, frustrated. Judge Brennan looked at Chen. "Any other witnesses?" "Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Sarah Chen." Sarah stood up, shocked. She hadn't expected this either. Her mother grabbed her hand, worried. "It's okay, Mom," Sarah whispered. Sarah walked to the witness stand, her legs shaking. She was 16 years old, wearing her best dress, about to testify in federal court. After being sworn in, she sat down, trying to look braver than she felt. "Miss Chen," James Chen said gently, "you started a petition supporting SpaceX. Why?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because SpaceX gives people like me hope," she said. "My dad is a janitor. He cleans classrooms at Caltech. He was an engineer in Taiwan, but his degree didn't count here in America, so he mops floors." Her voice grew stronger. "But when I watch SpaceX launches, when I see those rockets land themselves, I don't see my dad's limitations. I see my possibilities. I see that the future isn't just for people born rich or in the right country. It's for anyone willing to work hard and dream big." "What would it mean to you if SpaceX changed?" Sarah looked at Judge Brennan. "It would mean that dreaming isn't enough anymore, that the people who play it safe always win, that trying to do something amazing is punished instead of celebrated." Tears formed in her eyes. "I'm nobody special, Your Honor. I'm just a kid who wants to be an astronaut. But because of SpaceX, I actually believe I can be. If you take that away, you're not just hurting one company. You're hurting everyone who dares to dream." The courtroom was absolutely silent. Elena Rodriguez had no questions for Sarah. James Chen called one more witness, Dr. Ellen Ochoa. The former astronaut testified about how SpaceX had revolutionized spaceflight, how they had done in 10 years what NASA couldn't do in 30, how they had restored America's capability to launch astronauts. "SpaceX succeeds because of Elon Musk, not despite him," Dr. Ochoa said. "Remove him from day-to-day operations, and you might get better corporate governance, but you'll lose the magic." After her testimony, Chen rested his case. Judge Brennan looked exhausted. "I'll take a 30-minute recess before issuing my ruling." The gavel came down. Judge Catherine Brennan sat alone in her chambers, staring at the legal pad in front of her. She had filled 3 pages with notes during the testimony, arguments for both sides, legal precedents, corporate governance principles, but none of it seemed to matter now. This wasn't just about law anymore. It was about the future. Catherine walked to her window and looked out at downtown Wilmington, a small city, a quiet place. Nothing like the launch sites in Texas or the mission control rooms in California. But what she decided here would echo across all of those places. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. "Please, Aunt Kate, I believe in you." She set down her phone and picked up the photo from her desk. Jeremy at graduation, wearing his SpaceX shirt under his gown. Then she picked up another item from her desk drawer, something she rarely looked at. A small, worn photograph of her father, Thomas Brennan, standing outside the steel mill in Pittsburgh. He was covered in soot and grime, smiling despite the exhaustion in his eyes. "Rules protect the weak from the strong," he had always said. But what if the rules, applied rigidly, hurt everyone? What if protecting shareholders from one man's chaos meant destroying humanity's best chance at the stars? Catherine thought about Marcus Webb and his daughter Emma, about Sarah Chen and her dreams of becoming an astronaut, about her own nephew studying engineering because SpaceX made him believe space was possible. She thought about the booster that crashed into the Gulf, a $70 million failure. But she also thought about Starship flying around the moon and returning home safely. An impossible achievement completed in just 30 days. Catherine sat down at her desk and began writing her decision. 28 minutes later, she walked back into the courtroom. Every seat was still filled. No one had left. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Catherine took her seat behind the bench. She looked out at the faces staring back at her. Hopeful, fearful, desperate. She cleared her throat. "This case has forced me to consider questions that go far beyond my usual work. Not just corporate law, but the nature of innovation itself. The balance between vision and responsibility. What we owe to shareholders versus what we owe to the future. She paused, organizing her thoughts. Mr. Musk is not a conventional CEO. The testimony and evidence have made that abundantly clear. He's often reckless, sometimes irresponsible. His behavior on social media has been, at times, embarrassing and potentially damaging to his company's reputations. Elon Musk's face remained expressionless. Marcus felt his stomach tightening. However, Judge Brennan continued, after reviewing all the evidence, including the extraordinary achievement of the recent lunar mission, I must conclude that SpaceX's success is inextricably linked to Mr. Musk's direct involvement. Hope flickered through the courtroom. The testimony of Dr. Ochoa was particularly persuasive. SpaceX has achieved in 1 decade what traditional aerospace companies could not achieve in 3. They have reduced launch costs by 80%. They have restored American spaceflight capability. They have proven that reusable rockets are not only possible but economically viable. She looked directly at Musk. These achievements occurred under your leadership, Mr. Musk, not despite your unconventional methods, but because of them. Marcus felt tears building in his eyes. That said, Judge Brennan's voice became stern. I'm not simply dismissing the plaintiff's concerns. They raised legitimate issues about divided attention, corporate governance, and fiduciary responsibility. The hope wavered. Therefore, I am issuing the following order. The courtroom held its collective breath. Mr. Musk may retain his position as CEO and chief engineer of SpaceX. Relief washed through the crowd like a wave, but Catherine raised her hand for silence. However, SpaceX must implement additional corporate governance measures within 90 days. Specifically, she read from her written decision. First, SpaceX will appoint an independent president to handle day-to-day operations, freeing Mr. Musk to focus on engineering and long-term strategy. Second, SpaceX will establish a board committee to monitor Mr. Musk's time allocation across his various companies, ensuring SpaceX receives adequate attention. Third, SpaceX will implement social media guidelines for corporate officers, particularly regarding statements that might affect the company's reputation or business relationships. Fourth, SpaceX will provide quarterly reports to shareholders documenting these governance measures and Mr. Musk's compliance with them. She set down her papers and looked directly at Musk. Mr. Musk, you get to keep your company, but you don't get to avoid accountability. Consider this a wake-up call. The world is watching. Your employees are counting on you. Future generations are depending on you. Her voice softened slightly. Don't waste this opportunity. You've proven you can send a ship to the moon in 30 days. Now prove you can be the leader SpaceX deserves. She picked up her gavel. The plaintiff's motion for injunctive relief is denied with modifications. SpaceX will implement the governance measures outlined within 90 days. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. For a moment, nobody moved. Then chaos erupted. People jumped to their feet. Some cheered, others cried. Reporters rushed for the doors, shouting into phones. Marcus turned to Jennifer and Emma. His daughter was bouncing with excitement. "We won, Daddy, we won." Marcus hugged them both, tears streaming down his face. "Yeah, baby, we won." Sarah Chen sat with her parents, sobbing with relief. Her mother held her tight while her father wiped tears from his own eyes. "You did this," her mother whispered. "Your petition, your voice, you helped save the dream." In the front of the courtroom, Elon Musk stood and approached Judge Brennan as people filed out. It was slightly improper, but she allowed it. "Thank you," Musk said simply. Catherine looked at him carefully. "Don't thank me, Mr. Musk. Prove me right. Prove that one person can handle this much responsibility without abusing it. You've got 90 days to show us you can do better." Musk nodded. We're launching the first crewed Starship to lunar orbit in 85 days. NASA astronauts. First humans beyond low Earth orbit since 1972. If that doesn't prove we're building something worth protecting, nothing will. Catherine watched him walk away. Then she noticed Jeremy waiting by the door. She walked over to her nephew. He looked at her with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, Aunt Kate," he said. "I didn't do it for you," Catherine replied, but she was smiling slightly. "I did it because it was the right decision." "Can I hug you?" "In private," she said, "not in the courthouse." But she squeezed his hand briefly before walking back to her chambers. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Elon Musk. "Mr. Musk, how do you feel about the ruling? Will you implement the governance measures? What's next for SpaceX?" Musk pulled out his phone and typed a quick message on X. "Still going to Mars. Thanks for the reminder to focus on what matters. Also hiring a president to help manage the chaos. Applications open. Must be okay with occasional insanity." The tweet went viral within minutes. Marcus stood on the courthouse steps with his family, watching the scene unfold. "What happens now, Daddy?" Emma asked. Marcus looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, Starship was being recovered from the Pacific Ocean. Somewhere up there, Mars waited. "Now," Marcus said, smiling. "Now we get back to work. We have a lot more dreams to make come true." Emma grinned. "Can I help?" "Someday, sweetheart. Someday you'll do more than help, you'll lead." They walked to their car together, a family united by hope and the promise of tomorrow. SpaceX Starbase, Texas, 6 months after the ruling. Marcus stood on the observation deck, watching the sun set over the Gulf of Mexico. Behind him, 3 Starship prototypes gleamed in the fading light, ready for their upcoming missions. 6 months had changed everything. SpaceX had appointed Gwynne Shotwell, who had been president, into an expanded chief operating officer role. She now handled most daily operations, freeing Musk to focus on engineering challenges and long-term strategy. The change had been remarkable. Meetings ran more efficiently. Communication improved. Engineers had more predictable schedules, still demanding but sustainable. And most importantly, the launches continued. Marcus pulled out his phone and checked the mission schedule. In 3 weeks, Starship Flight 10 would carry 4 NASA astronauts to lunar orbit, the first humans beyond low Earth orbit in over 50 years. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. "Dad, I got an A on my science project about heat shields. My teacher said it was the best in class." Marcus smiled. His daughter's project had been about the thermal protection systems on Starship, specifically the modifications his team had made for the lunar mission. Emma knew more about spacecraft engineering than most high school students. She had even started a space club at her elementary school, teaching other kids about rockets and planets. "That's my girl," Marcus texted back. "I'm proud of you." Jennifer sent a photo, Emma holding her project board, beaming with pride. Next to her project was a model Starship she had built herself. Marcus saved the photo. Someday, when Emma was older, he would tell her about these months, about the judge who almost stopped everything, about the mission that saved the dream, about how her father and thousands of others fought to keep the stars within reach. But for now, Emma just needed to be 9 years old, excited about science projects and dreaming of Mars. Pasadena, California. Sarah's bedroom. Sarah sat at her desk, working on her college applications. She was a senior now, 17 years old, with perfect grades and test scores that made her counselor's eyes light up. MIT, Caltech, and Stanford had all sent her recruitment letters, but the application essay was harder than any test she had ever taken. The prompt was simple: describe a challenge you faced and what you learned from it. Sarah stared at her computer screen, trying to find the right words. How do you explain watching your dreams almost die? How do you describe fighting for something bigger than yourself? How do you put into words the feeling of standing on a beach, watching a rocket climb toward the moon, knowing that you had played a tiny part in making it happen? She started typing. When I was 16, I learned that hope is not passive. Hope requires action, courage, and the willingness to fight for what matters. Her phone rang. She didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Hello. Hi, is this Sarah Chen? A woman's voice, professional but warm. Yes, this is Sarah. My name is Dr. Lisa Park. I'm the crew systems manager at SpaceX. I wanted to reach out because we received your application for our summer internship program. Sarah's heart stopped. She had applied 3 months ago but hadn't expected to hear back. SpaceX received thousands of applications. I've been following your story, Dr. Park continued. The petition you started, your advocacy for space exploration. We were very impressed. Thank you, Sarah managed to say. We'd like to offer you a position in our Starship Crew Systems division for this summer. You'd be working on life support systems, habitat design, things like that. It's mainly research and documentation, but you'd be working alongside the engineers designing systems for Mars missions. Sarah couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face. Sarah, are you there? Yes, I'm here. Yes, I would love to accept. Dr. Park laughed. Wonderful, we'll send you the details. Welcome to SpaceX, Sarah. After hanging up, Sarah ran downstairs screaming. Her parents rushed out of the kitchen, alarmed. What's wrong? Her father asked. Nothing's wrong, everything's right. I got the SpaceX internship. I'm going to work on Starship this summer. Her mother burst into tears. Her father lifted her off the ground in a hug. That night, Sarah's grandfather called from Taiwan. She told him the news in rapid Mandarin, her words tumbling over each other with excitement. I told you, her grandfather said, his old voice thick with emotion. I told you that humans were meant to fly, and now you will help them fly to the stars. Delaware Judge Brennan's office. Catherine sat in her office, reading through legal briefs for her next case. Corporate merger dispute. Routine. Boring. She missed the SpaceX case, even though it had nearly given her a nervous breakdown. Her computer dinged with a news alert. SpaceX announces first commercial lunar tourism flight, 12 passengers confirmed for 2027. Catherine clicked the article and read about how SpaceX was already selling tickets for trips around the moon. Wealthy tourists willing to pay millions for the experience. But the article also mentioned something else. SpaceX was developing a scholarship program to send teachers, scientists, and students on future missions, making space accessible to people who couldn't afford the ticket price. Catherine thought about Sarah Chen, the teenage girl who had testified in her courtroom. Maybe Sarah would be on one of those flights someday. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jeremy. Aunt Kate, guess what? I got a job offer from SpaceX. I start after graduation. I'm going to work on Raptor engine testing. Catherine stared at the message, emotions swirling. Pride, fear, hope. She typed back, congratulations, be safe. And Jeremy. Yeah. Make it count. Make it worth everything we fought for. I will, I promise. Catherine set down her phone and looked at the photo on her desk. Her father standing outside the steel mill. Rules protect the weak from the strong, he had said. But sometimes, Catherine had learned, protecting the strong meant protecting everyone's future. She had made the right decision. She was sure of it now. SpaceX headquarters, Hawthorne, California board meeting. Elon Musk sat at the conference table, listening to Gwynne Shotwell present the quarterly report to the board. Launch cadence is up 30% from last year. We've completed 42 orbital missions so far this quarter. Customer satisfaction is at an all-time high. Revenue projections are exceeding targets." The board members nodded approvingly. "And Mr. Musk's time allocation?" one board member asked. Gwynn pulled up a chart. "Elon is spending an average of 60% of his time on SpaceX operations, 20% on Tesla, 15% on X, and 5% on other ventures. This is within the guidelines established by the court." Another board member raised her hand. "What about social media activity?" Musk winced. He knew this was coming. "Mr. Musk has reduced controversial posts by 70%, Gwynn said, "and we've implemented a review process for posts that might affect company operations or reputation." "Have you been following it?" the board member asked Musk directly. "Mostly," Musk admitted. "I still screw up sometimes, but I'm trying." The room chuckled. Everyone knew Musk would never be conventional, but he was trying to be better, and that was enough. After the meeting, Musk walked through the Hawthorne factory. Technicians were assembling Falcon 9 rockets, now so routine they could build one in 3 weeks. In another building, crews worked on Dragon spacecraft. In the back, the first pieces of the next-generation Starship were being fabricated. A young engineer approached him nervously. "Mr. Musk, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Was it hard 6 months ago when the judge almost made you leave?" Musk thought about the question. About the 30 days of chaos, the crashed booster, the moment Starship emerged from behind the moon. "Yeah," he said honestly. "It was terrifying, but you know what I learned?" "What?" "That SpaceX is bigger than me now. You all proved that. During those 30 days when I was scattered and stressed and probably making bad decisions, you kept working. You kept believing. You got us to the moon." The engineer smiled. "We couldn't have done it without you." "Maybe," Musk said, "but I definitely couldn't have done it without all of you." He continued walking through the factory, looking at the rockets being built, the spacecraft being assembled, the future being constructed piece by piece. His phone buzzed. A notification from NASA. Artemis III lunar landing confirmed for 2026 using SpaceX Starship. The first humans on the moon since 1972, and SpaceX would take them there. Musk allowed himself a small smile. Then he got back to work. There was still so much to do. Mars wasn't going to settle itself. South Padre Island, Texas, Christmas Eve. Marcus brought Emma to the beach again, just like he had done 6 months ago. They watched a Falcon 9 launch at sunset. A Starlink mission, routine now but still beautiful. The rocket rose through layers of orange and pink clouds, its exhaust plume catching the last rays of sunlight. The booster returned and landed on the drone ship exactly as planned. Perfect. Routine. Incredible. Emma watched with shining eyes. She was 10 now, taller, smarter, more confident in her dreams. "Dad," she said, "do you think I'll really get to go to Mars?" Marcus looked at his daughter, then at the contrail still visible in the darkening sky, then at the stars beginning to appear. 6 months ago, he would have said maybe. Now he knew better. "Yeah, sweetheart," he said, pulling her close. "I really think you will. And when you do, I'll be watching from mission control, just like I watched Starship go around the moon." "Will you be scared?" "Terrified," Marcus admitted, "but also proud, so proud." They stood together on the beach as the stars emerged one by one. Mars appeared as a tiny red dot, brighter than usual tonight. "That's where I'm going," Emma said, pointing. "I know," Marcus said. "And the whole world will be watching, cheering you on." Like they cheered for Starship. Exactly like that. Because you're not just Emma Webb, my daughter. You're Emma Webb, future astronaut, future Mars explorer, future proof that the dream never died. Emma hugged her father tight. "I won't let you down, Daddy." "You couldn't if you tried," Marcus whispered. "You're already everything I hoped you'd be." They walked back to the car, father and daughter, engineer and dreamer, holding hands under a sky full of infinite possibilities. Behind them, another Starship prototype stood ready at the launch site, waiting for its turn to prove that humanity's future lay among the stars. The dream was still alive, and it was just beginning. Federal Courthouse, Wilmington, Delaware, 2 years later. The courtroom looked exactly the same. Same wooden benches, same American flag in the corner, same portrait of the Founding Fathers on the wall. Judge Catherine Brennan sat behind the same bench where she had made her ruling 2 years ago, but everything was different now. Marcus Webb sat in the gallery, confused. He had received a court summons 3 days ago, so had thousands of other SpaceX employees. The message was vague. Your presence is requested for a hearing regarding Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. What hearing? The case was closed 2 years ago. SpaceX had implemented all the governance measures. Everything was fine. Sarah Chen sat 2 rows behind Marcus. She had just finished her freshman year at MIT, where she was studying aerospace engineering with perfect grades. She had spent last summer at SpaceX, working on life support systems. This summer, she was supposed to go back, but now this mysterious court summons had arrived. Judge Brennan called the court to order. We are here today for case number 2026 CV847, United States of America versus Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. Marcus felt ice in his veins. The United States, the government was suing SpaceX. Will counsel please identify themselves for the record, Judge Brennan said. A woman in a dark suit stood from the plaintiff's table. Jennifer Morrison, representing the United States Department of Justice Antitrust Division. From the defense table, James Chen stood. James Chen, representing Space Exploration Technologies Corporation. Antitrust. Marcus's mind raced. What was happening? Jennifer Morrison approached the podium. Your Honor, the United States has filed this action under the Sherman Antitrust Act. We allege that Space Exploration Technologies has acquired monopoly power in the commercial spaceflight industry and is using that power to harm competition and consumers. The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Judge Brennan banged her gavel. Order. Morrison continued. SpaceX now controls 87% of global orbital launch capacity. They have launched more cargo to space in the past year than all other countries and companies combined. Their Starlink satellite network dominates low Earth orbit communications. This concentration of power in a single private company poses significant risks. She clicked a remote. Charts appeared on screens around the courtroom. Traditional aerospace contractors, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, are being driven out of the market. They cannot compete with SpaceX's prices or capabilities. In 5 years, SpaceX may be the only launch provider in the Western world. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. They were being punished for being good at what they did. Furthermore, Morrison said, the government has concerns about Mr. Elon Musk's control over critical infrastructure. SpaceX provides launch services for national security satellites. Starlink provides communication networks for military operations. Mr. Musk also owns Tesla, which produces electric vehicles and batteries. He owns X, a major social media platform. He owns Neuralink, which is developing brain-computer interfaces. She paused for effect. No single individual in American history has controlled this much infrastructure simultaneously. Not Rockefeller, not Carnegie, not Morgan. The concentration of power in Mr. Musk's hands represents a national security risk. Sarah felt sick. This couldn't be happening. Not again. Morrison continued to her main argument. The United States is seeking the following relief. First, SpaceX must be broken into 3 separate companies, one for launch services, one for Starlink, one for spacecraft development. Second, Mr. Musk must divest his ownership stake in at least two of these companies to below 30%. Third, restrictions must be placed on coordination between these entities to ensure genuine competition. The courtroom exploded, people shouted, reporters rushed for the doors. "Order!" Judge Brennan slammed her gavel repeatedly. "I will clear this courtroom if necessary." The noise subsided slowly. Marcus sat frozen. "Break up SpaceX. Force Musk out." This was worse than the case 2 years ago. This was the end of everything. Judge Brennan looked exhausted. "Mr. Chen, your response." James Chen stood slowly. He looked older than he had 2 years ago, more tired. "Your Honor, this lawsuit is driven by SpaceX's competitors who cannot match our efficiency or innovation. Boeing has received billions in government contracts and still cannot deliver reliable spacecraft. Blue Origin has spent a decade trying to reach orbit and hasn't succeeded. Rather than innovate, these companies are using the government to destroy their competition." He walked to the center of the courtroom. "SpaceX doesn't have a monopoly. We have success. There's a difference. Any company can build rockets and compete with us. They just have to build better, cheaper, more reliable systems. Nobody's stopping them." Morrison interrupted. "Your Honor, that's not accurate. SpaceX's vertical integration gives them unfair advantages. They build their own engines, their own rockets, their own spacecraft, their own launch facilities. New competitors can't replicate that infrastructure." "Because it took us 20 years to build it," Chen shot back. "SpaceX started with nothing. 3 failed launches nearly bankrupted the company. They succeeded through innovation and hard work, not through anti-competitive practices." Judge Brennan raised her hand. "Gentlemen, counselor, let's maintain decorum." She looked at the case file in front of her. 2 years ago, she had ruled on corporate governance. Now she was being asked to rule on the future of American spaceflight itself. "I'm going to need expert testimony," Catherine said. "This court is not equipped to evaluate these technical claims without guidance." Over the next 3 hours, witnesses testified. A Boeing executive claimed SpaceX's low prices were predatory, designed to drive competitors out of business. "They're charging below cost to capture the market." A SpaceX financial officer countered with data showing every launch was profitable. "We're just more efficient. Reusability reduces costs by 70%. A national security expert warned about dependence on a single company. "What if SpaceX fails? What if Mr. Musk makes bad decisions? We'd lose access to space." A NASA administrator testified that SpaceX had saved the American space program. "After the space shuttle retired, we had no capability. SpaceX gave it back to us, faster and cheaper than anyone thought possible." Finally, Judge Brennan called a witness herself. "I'd like to hear from someone who works at SpaceX, someone who can explain how the company actually operates." She looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Webb, would you approach the bench?" Marcus's heart nearly stopped. Not again. Why did judges keep calling on him? He walked to the witness stand on shaking legs. After being sworn in, Marcus sat down, facing the judge who had saved SpaceX 2 years ago. Would she save it again? "Mr. Webb," Judge Brennan said, "you testified 2 years ago about SpaceX's culture. Tell me, has the company changed since then?" Marcus thought carefully. "Yes and no, Your Honor. The governance changes you ordered made things more organized. We have better work-life balance, more structure, but the core mission hasn't changed. We're still trying to make humanity multiplanetary. The government claims SpaceX has too much power, that you've become a monopoly. How do you respond?" "Your Honor, we're successful because we're good at what we do. Our rockets work. They're reliable, they're cheap." If Boeing or Lockheed Martin built better rockets, customers would use them. They don't because those companies are stuck in old ways of doing things. Morrison stood. Objection. The witness is not qualified to evaluate competitors. I worked at Boeing for 5 years, Marcus said firmly. I know exactly how they operate. Layers of bureaucracy, 10-year development timelines, cost-plus contracts that reward overruns instead of efficiency. SpaceX succeeds because we do the opposite. Judge Brennan leaned forward. Mr. Webb, what would happen if SpaceX were broken up as the government requests? Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment that mattered. Everything would fall apart, he said quietly. Not immediately, but over time. SpaceX works because all the pieces fit together. Our engines are designed for our rockets. Our rockets are designed for our spacecraft. Our spacecraft are designed for our satellites and Mars missions. It's a system. He used the same analogy he had used 2 years ago. If you break us apart, each piece might survive, but they won't work together anymore. Development slows down, costs go up, innovation stops, and then Boeing and Lockheed Martin get what they want. SpaceX stops being competition. What about the national security concerns? Judge Brennan asked. About one person controlling critical infrastructure. Marcus looked at Elon Musk, who sat at the defense table looking more stressed than Marcus had ever seen him. Mr. Musk isn't perfect, Marcus said honestly. He's made mistakes, but he's also the reason we have American spaceflight capability again. The reason we're going back to the moon. The reason my daughter believes she can go to Mars someday. His voice grew stronger. You break up SpaceX, you don't make America safer, you make America weaker. Because while we're breaking apart our best space company, China is building their space station, their moon base, their Mars program. They're not breaking up their space industry, they're unifying it. The courtroom was silent. Jennifer Morrison stood for cross-examination. Mr. Webb, isn't it true that SpaceX has pulled engineers from other Musk companies, Tesla, Neuralink, to work on SpaceX projects? Sometimes, Marcus admitted, when we need specific expertise, but it goes both ways. SpaceX engineers have helped Tesla with battery systems, helped Boring Company with tunnel technology. The companies support each other. Doesn't that prove they should be treated as one monopolistic entity? No, it proves they're part of a connected vision. Everything Mr. Musk builds connects to the same goal, making humanity multiplanetary. You can't separate the pieces without destroying the whole. Morrison tried another angle. What about smaller launch companies? Rocket Lab, Firefly, Relativity Space. Don't they deserve protection from SpaceX's dominance? They don't need protection, Marcus said. They need to innovate. Rocket Lab is doing great work with their Electron rocket. We don't see them as enemies. We see them as partners in opening up space. There's room for everyone who's willing to do the hard work. Morrison sat down, frustrated again. Judge Brennan excused Marcus and called her final witness, Sarah Chen. Sarah approached the stand, now 18 years old, more confident than she had been 2 years ago, but still nervous. Miss Chen, Judge Brennan said, you're studying aerospace engineering at MIT now, correct? Yes, Your Honor. And you interned at SpaceX last summer? Yes, ma'am. Tell me, did you see evidence of monopolistic behavior, unfair business practices? Sarah thought about her summer, working alongside engineers who believed in the mission, seeing the dedication, the innovation, the passion. No, Your Honor, I saw people working incredibly hard to solve difficult problems. I saw engineers staying late not because they were forced to, but because they wanted to, because they believed in what they were building. The government says breaking up SpaceX would increase competition. What do you think? Sarah looked directly at Judge Brennan. I think it would kill the dream, again. She paused, gathering her courage. 2 years ago, I stood in this courtroom and said SpaceX gives people like me hope. That's still true, but now it's more than hope. It's reality. I'm studying aerospace engineering because SpaceX made me believe it was possible. I'm going to work in the space industry because SpaceX created that industry. Her voice grew passionate. You break up SpaceX and you're not protecting competition. You're protecting companies that failed to compete. Boeing had 60 years and billions of dollars. They couldn't do what SpaceX did in 20 years with a fraction of the budget. That's not SpaceX's fault. That's Boeing's failure. Morrison objected. Your Honor, the witness is hardly objective. She's emotionally invested in SpaceX. Yes, I am, Sarah said fiercely. I'm invested in humanity's future. I'm invested in proving that space isn't just for billionaires and governments. I'm invested in showing that a janitor's daughter from California can help build the spacecraft that takes us to Mars. Tears streamed down her face. Don't punish SpaceX for succeeding. Don't kill the dream because it's working too well, please. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Judge Brennan looked at Sarah for a long moment. Then she looked at Marcus, at the SpaceX employees filling the gallery, at Elon Musk, who looked like he might collapse from stress. This court will take a recess, Catherine said. I'll issue my preliminary ruling in 1 hour. The gavel came down. 1 hour later. Catherine had thought the case 2 years ago was the hardest decision of her career. She had been wrong. That case was about one man and one company. This case was about the future of American space exploration, about competition versus innovation, about protecting the weak versus enabling the strong. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Rules protect the weak from the strong. But what if the strong were carrying humanity toward the stars? What if protecting weaker companies meant sacrificing the future? Catherine made her decision. She walked back into the courtroom and took her seat. I've reviewed the evidence and testimony. This is my preliminary ruling. Everyone leaned forward. The government has demonstrated that SpaceX holds a dominant position in commercial spaceflight. However, dominance is not the same as monopoly. SpaceX achieved their position through innovation, efficiency, and superior execution, not through anti-competitive practices. Hope flickered in the room. The testimony of Mr. Webb and Ms. Chen was particularly illuminating. SpaceX's vertical integration is not a barrier to competition. It's the result of years of investment and development that any competitor could replicate if they chose to make the same commitment. She paused. However, the national security concerns raised by the government are not without merit. The concentration of critical infrastructure in one company, and ultimately in one individual's control, does pose risks. The hope wavered. Therefore, I am denying the government's request to break up SpaceX. The company will remain intact. Relief washed through the crowd like a wave. But, Catherine continued, raising her voice, I am ordering the following measures. First, SpaceX must establish a truly independent board with at least 50% outside directors not affiliated with any Musk company. Second, the company must develop succession plans and demonstrate that operations can continue without Mr. Musk's direct involvement. Third, SpaceX must license certain technologies to competitors at reasonable rates to encourage market competition. She looked at both legal teams. This is not a perfect solution. The government's concerns about concentration are valid. SpaceX's argument about integrated innovation is also valid. I'm trying to balance both. She picked up her gavel. SpaceX will not be broken up, but they will be monitored closely. Mr. Musk, the world is watching. Don't make me regret this decision." The gavel came down. This time the cheers were muted. It was a victory, but a complicated one. SpaceX survived, but with new restrictions, new oversight, new limits. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. Elon Musk stood on the steps, looking exhausted but relieved. "Mr. Musk, will you comply with the judge's orders?" "Yes," he said simply. "We'll do whatever it takes to keep building the future." "Are you worried about more lawsuits?" "Always," Musk said with a tired smile. "But worry doesn't stop progress. Neither do lawsuits. We're still going to Mars. Nothing changes that." He walked to his car and drove away. Marcus stood on the courthouse steps with Sarah. "It's not over, is it?" Sarah said quietly. "No," Marcus admitted. "There will always be people trying to stop us. Competitors who want to tear us down. Politicians who want control. Lawyers who see problems instead of possibilities. So what do we do?" Marcus looked at this young woman who had fought so hard for the dream, who had started a petition at 16, who had testified in federal court twice, who was now becoming an engineer herself. "We keep working," Marcus said. "We keep building. We keep proving that the dream is worth fighting for. And when they try to stop us again, because they will, we fight back, just like we always have." Sarah nodded. "I can do that." "I know you can," Marcus said. "In fact, I'm counting on it. Because someday I'll be too old to fight these battles, but you'll still be here, you and people like you, keeping the dream alive." They walked down the courthouse steps together. Behind them, the building stood solid and imposing, a place where laws were made, where battles were fought, where the future was decided by judges and lawyers. But the real future wasn't decided in courtrooms. It was decided in factories where rockets were built, in control rooms where launches were monitored, in classrooms where students studied engineering, in bedrooms where children looked at posters of Mars and whispered, "Someday." The lawsuits would continue. The battles would never truly end, but neither would the dream. Epilogue that is not an epilogue 10 years later. Emma Webb stood in the Starship crew cabin, looking out the window at Earth falling away below. She was 19 years old, the youngest person ever selected for a Mars mission. Her father watched from Mission Control in Texas, crying with pride and terror. Next to Emma stood Sarah Chen, now a lead engineer on the Mars Habitat team, making her first trip to the Red Planet. "You ready for this?" Sarah asked. Emma looked at Earth, that beautiful blue marble growing smaller in the window. Somewhere down there, her father was watching, her mother, her teachers, her friends. And somewhere down there in a courthouse in Delaware, Judge Catherine Brennan was probably watching too, wondering if she had made the right choices all those years ago. "Yeah," Emma said, smiling. "I'm ready. Let's go make history." Starship's engines fired, pushing them toward Mars, toward humanity's future, toward the dream that had survived lawsuits and doubters and fear. The dream that would never die as long as people were willing to fight for it. And that was the end of this incredible story. A judge who tried to stop a dream. Engineers who worked day and night to save it. A teenage girl who refused to stay silent. And a mission to the moon that changed everything. But here's my question for you. Where are you listening from? Are you in America, Europe, Asia, Africa, somewhere else? Drop a comment and let me know. I love hearing from listeners all around the world. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. It really helps this channel grow and reach more people who love inspiring stories like this one. And don't forget to subscribe. We share amazing true stories about courage, dreams, and people who refuse to give up, just like the people in today's story. Finally, please share this video with your friends and family. Spread the kindness, spread the awareness, because stories like this remind us that dreams are worth fighting for and the future is built by people who dare to believe. Thank you for listening. Keep dreaming, Keep believing. And remember, the stars are closer than you think. Until next time.